Good afternoon. I'm Trinity Chavez.
And I'm Allison Cossack. It's Thursday, January 18th, and you are watching NYSE TV Live.
And we are coming to you from the New York Stock Exchange, the epicenter of global financial markets. And this afternoon at the exchange, we are celebrating an organization that officially turns 100 later this year, the American Cotton Shippers Association. And to celebrate the occasion, we have American Cotton Shippers Association branding all over the iconic building. From the cubes behind me above the trading floor, CEO Buddy Allen will ring the closing bell and close out the U.S. equity market.
It's certainly going to be an exciting moment, not only for them, but for us to watch and for viewers to watch as well. The ACSA, it was organized on July 8, 1924, to provide a united voice for the cotton merchandising trade of the United States. Some of the organization's responsibilities include collaborating with producer organizations throughout the Cotton Belt in formulating farm programs, and cooperating with government agencies in the administration of such programs. The ACSA has a huge impact on the cotton industry. Member firms, they're the ones that handle more than 80% of the U.S. cotton that's sold in domestic and foreign markets. The organization is comprised of cotton merchants, primary buyers, and mill service agents who are members of 4 federated associations located throughout the Cotton Belt. The 4 member firms are the Atlantic Cotton Association, the Southern Cotton Association, the Texas Cotton Association, and the Western Cotton Shippers Association.
And Allison, we're also going to be seeing a steam locomotive bell that was an iconic part of the New York Cotton Exchange, which was established, by the way, in 1870. Now, the bell was salvaged by the father of Tom McMahon, who is currently the co-founder and CEO of Air Carbon Exchange. When the old Cotton Exchange closed one of its trading floors, the bell is being donated to the ACSA this afternoon. Our very own Judy Shaw spoke with Tom McMahon about the bell that came into their possession. Let's take a listen.
The bell that we know today, the one that we've been able to bring back to Wall Street, was given to the New York Cotton Exchange in 1921. It actually was a bell, came off of a retired New York Central steam engine from the Vanderbilt Group. And it was brought to the exchange by a gentleman, a member of the exchange, and installed at the new exchange, which was built on Hanover after they left India House and moved across the street to what was ultimately the Kennard Building, and the building we know today on Hanover that has the plaque honoring the New York Cotton Exchange. And it was there, resided there from 1922 to 1967. The bell came to us in 1967. The world as we know today. It was very different in '67. The world of cotton, it was not doing well. The exchanges were challenged, and they had to close the floor and it moved from '67 from Hanover to 33 Wall Street, to a much smaller building right on the back of J.P. Morgan as we know it today, and they left everything behind. And that was July 4th weekend of '67. And my dad, being a bit of a history buff, he goes, we've got to save something. And we rescued the bell, fundamentally is what it was. And it came into our possession. And it stayed with us from 1967 until this year. And interestingly, it lived in my dad's office. He retired ultimately in 1987, and then it passed to my brother. And it resided in New York, just outside New York City. And we actually tried to give it away previously. We tried to donate it to museums, but people were like, well, they didn't get the value of it. But ultimately, it was Jennifer Ilkew who had the opportunity. I gave Jen one of her first jobs in the commodities industry, and she remembered that we had the bell. And last year, she reached out to me and said, "Look, do you still have that? And it would be great to bring it back." And to bring it back to Wall Street, I think is really the key. And what Jeff Sprecher and the ICE Group has done over the years, and the blending of the securities markets, the equities markets, and the commodities markets, and becoming NYSE as a hub. It's a wonderful place for it to be brought to. It's an honor for us to bring it back to Wall Street. And also, too, it's actually probably one of the last physical pieces of memorabilia that exist. And unfortunately, after 9/11, most everything was lost. The New York Cotton Exchange lost all the legacy of most of any of the attributes from the older exchanges. So it's a survivor, and it's nice to bring it back to the street.
And our thanks to Judy and Tom McMahon. And we're going to be hearing from ACSA CEO Buddy Allen and New York Stock Exchange's head of listings for U.S. sectors, Tara Zedzik. We're going to hear from them in just a moment. Trinity, there's a little trivia for you. Did you know where we are right now? We're about a 5-minute walk from where the New York Cotton Exchange was actually founded?
Yeah, absolutely. And it dates back to more than 150 years. Actually, on July 20th, 1870, 106 merchants and brokers signed an agreement supporting the creation of the Cotton Exchange. 2 months later, the brokers formally adopted a constitution and bylaws and began operations at 142 Pearl Street on September 10th, 1870. However, the Cotton Exchange never stayed at one home for very long due to the rapid expansion. Now, in 1872, it moved to 1 Hanover Square, and then in 1885, relocated to the corner of William and Beaver Streets. That home was designed by architect George Post, who would eventually design the new home of the building we're in right now, the New York Stock Exchange. So a lot of important information right there. And the New York Cotton Exchange would eventually move several more times in the 20th century as well. But the Cotton Exchange wasn't only changing its physical presence.
Exactly.
Right?
You're right about that. In 1930, the exchange founded the Wool Associates of the New York Cotton Exchange. Wool Top Futures, they began trading on May 18th, 1931. Then, in 1966, the exchange further diversified by establishing the Citrus Associates of the New York Cotton Exchange and began trading frozen concentrated orange juice futures that October. Later diversification efforts would see the addition of the Petroleum Associates and trading in crude oil and liquid propane gas futures. In 1985, the Cotton Exchange ventured into the world of financial futures and options with the establishment of Finex, the exchange's financial instrument division. And almost a decade later, Finex would open a trading floor in Dublin, Ireland in June 1994.
Now, for all of you who are watching, if you're wondering how this all ties into the New York Stock Exchange, let's fast forward to January 2007. That's when the Cotton Exchange's parent company, the New York Board of Trade, was acquired by Intercontinental Exchange. And on September 3rd, 2007, the New York Board of Trade was renamed ICE Futures US. Now, just shy of 7 years later, ICE acquired the NYSE, Euronext, and the New York Stock Exchange in November 2013, bringing both exchanges under the same parent for the first time in their histories. So, wow, I mean, this is really incredible. A lot of history right here.
Yeah, I mean, rich in history, and just the building we're sitting in, obviously, and all of the architecture and the buildings that surround the financial district as well. I love it. I love just strolling around outside.
Well, I mean, and we're
looking at all of
perched
it.
up high above the trading floor, right?
We are.
This iconic institution, 231 years old. I mean, and we have over 2,400 listed companies, over $40 trillion in total market cap, which is what makes us the biggest exchange in the world in terms of market cap. So,
and speaking of what happens here at the exchange, let's talk about today's session coming to an end. Let's take a look at how the markets are faring this afternoon. The Dow looking to snap a 3-day losing streak, while the 10-year Treasury yield briefly topping 4.15% before pulling back slightly. The Labor Department reporting earlier today that initial jobless claims totaled 187,000 for the week ending January 13th. That's the lowest total since September of 2022. We have seen a lot of moving back and forth. I did see kind of the rally peter out a little bit earlier today based on some earnings that were kind of disappointing, but we're seeing the markets make a comeback with 20 seconds left to go before the closing bell. And exciting things are happening at the closing bell, right?
A lot of exciting things are happening, but, and you know, we're actually going to take the audience to the boardroom in just about 30 seconds. But, you know, I want to go back to the history of this iconic institution real quick. You know, like I was talking about earlier, the New York Stock Exchange, or NYSE, traces its roots back to 1792 when a group of traders gathered beneath a buttonwood tree on the corner of Wall and Broad Streets in Lower Manhattan, and they formed the agreement now known as the Buttonwood Agreement, which we have on the 6th floor. And, you know, I want to talk so much more about this, but first I'm getting word that we can bring it to the boardroom right now, and we'll continue our coverage from there. We'll be back.
So it's my absolute privilege to welcome the American Cotton Shippers Association here today to celebrate your 100-year anniversary. Congratulations, it's quite a milestone. There's not a lot of organizations that can say they've reached that amount of longevity. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Elizabeth King, and I am the head of clearing here at ICE and ICE's Chief Regulatory Officer. And along with my colleagues here at ICE and the New York Stock Exchange, I welcome you to celebrate your centennial. So the closing bell today, which we do, as you know, every day, we have a special guest star. It's the bell from the New York Cotton Exchange, which is very exciting. We have the New York Stock Exchange and the Cotton Exchange have shared roots here in Lower Manhattan. And the history of this exchange and how this bell came to be here is really quite interesting. I only have a few minutes, but I just want to give you a little bit of background here. So the Cotton Exchange started in 1870 with 106 brokers, created the exchange here and on Pearl Street, just around the corner. And as it grew, it moved to other locations around Lower Manhattan. And when the Cotton Exchange moved to bigger quarters from 60 Beaver Street, they left the bell behind. Joe McMahon, who was a leader in that exchange, rescued it. And it was in the possession of the McMahon family since the 1967 when he rescued it from their Hanover Square location, and until June of last year when Tom and Brian McMahon donated it to the New York Stock Exchange. Brian McMahon is here today to represent his family, and I want to thank him on behalf of ICE and the New York Stock Exchange for bringing the bell back to its home here in Lower Manhattan. So the New York Stock Exchange is a very fitting home for this bell, and we will take good care of it. It is not only because we share the history of bringing fair and orderly marketplaces here to Lower Manhattan, but also our shared present. The New York Stock Exchange, as you probably know, we've been here in Lower Manhattan since 1792, when 24 brokers got together under a buttonwood tree and signed an agreement called the Buttonwood Agreement. And that was the founding of the U.S. capital markets and for the New York Stock Exchange. And that Buttonwood Agreement we display on our 7th floor, just one floor up, and I encourage you to take a quick peek at it when you come back from the bell today. But importantly, these two exchanges were brought together in the past decade by Intercontinental Exchange, ICE. It acquired the Cotton Exchange's parent company, the New York Board of Trade, in 2007. And then a few years later, in 2013, it acquired the New York Stock Exchange. So the Cotton Exchange, which is now ICE U.S. Futures, is owned by the same parent as the New York Stock Exchange. So with that, I'm honored to have all of you here today to share the tradition of our closing bell. And I would like to invite Buddy Allen, who's the CEO and president of the ACSA, up to give a few remarks.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. Elizabeth, Jen Ilkew, Alex Albert, Tribune Bland, all our friends at ICE and the New York Stock Exchange. What a special opportunity for the American Cotton Shippers Association to be able to be here today to celebrate our centennial anniversary. So thank you from all of us. We're deeply grateful. And to the McMahon family, who has brought the bell back and is giving us the opportunity to ring it at the close of the New York Stock Exchange, which is historic in itself. We're very grateful for their preservation, for their interest in American Cotton Shippers Association, for them allowing us to make that symbol, an iconic piece of history, part of our legacy in celebrating our centennial anniversary this year. So let's give a round of applause for 100 successful years of the American Cotton Shippers Association. Thank you.
So every day we strike a medallion in the building to honor our closing bell ringer. So it's my honor to present to you this medallion, Buddy Allen. On one side, we have the 6 pillars in front of the New York Stock Exchange that represent free enterprise and capital markets. And on the other, we have a buttonwood tree. So. And for the rest of you in the room, we have coins here for you that you can pick up. They're outside the building here, outside the room here. in a basket. So feel free to take one as a memento of your day here at the Exchange. So, yep. John? So let me just give you a few instructions here on getting down to the bell. Those of you with blue stripes.
There you have it. Now we just heard from ICE Global Head of Clearing and Chief Regulatory Officer Elizabeth King, along with Buddy Allen, who is the American Cotton Shippers Association co-founder and CEO. All of the special things that happen for memberships and members of these organizations who get to kind of enjoy their surroundings here at the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, I think Buddy said it best, right? I mean, I really love how Elizabeth was drawing the parallel of like the NYSE as well as this association and their presence here. But I really love what Buddy said about how now they are a part of the fabric of this iconic institution. And, two historic companies basically coming together. NYSE is over 230 years old, and then we have the American Cotton Association celebrating 100 years. So truly a remarkable day. And we've seen plenty of recent activity here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Here's senior market strategist Michael Ranking to break down the action in the NYSE briefs. Let's check it out.
Hi everybody, I'm Michael Ranking, coming to you straight from the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange with your weekly brief. So we continue to be in a pretty choppy trading environment to start 2024. The S&P 500 is traded on either side of unchanged, kind of throughout the year, but we continue to be in this 100-point range that we've been in between 4,700 and 4,800 really since the middle of December following the Fed's rate decision. Now, since I was last with you, we have seen yields moving a bit higher in response to some kind of resilient economic data, including better than expected retail sales and initial jobless claims hitting their lowest level in over a year. We also continue to hear from central bankers around the globe, kind of pushing back against the very aggressive market expectations for rate cuts to begin in Q1 of this year and continue through the remainder of 2024. Now, earnings season began last Friday unofficially with major financial institutions beginning to report. The numbers have been pretty mixed thus far. Some of the key common themes that we've heard throughout is pressure on net interest income. Companies have focused on expense controls, and that's remained pretty well in check. We continue to see tepid loan growth. And companies continue to provision, and we're seeing kind of an increase in net charge-offs, but we're not seeing any big red flags from that perspective. Commercial real estate continues to be an area of concern, and as we start to hear from more small and regional banks, over the next week, we'll get some more insight from that perspective. And then on the positive front, we have heard some cautiously optimistic commentary, in and around investment banking and capital markets activity as we head into 2024. Now, as we look forward to next week, earnings will continue to drive a lot of the conversation. The array of companies and industries that are reporting will really begin to expand. In terms of key economic data next week, we have the global flash PMIs and PCE, the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation. We also have a couple of central bank rate decisions, including the BOJ and the ECB. In terms of Japan, markets will be listening for some clues in terms of when Japan will end their negative interest rate policy. And then lastly, I just want to highlight that tomorrow, this Friday, is options expiration. So be on the lookout for some additional volume and volatility around the open and the close. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you for joining me. I'm Michael Ranking, and this has been your weekly brief.
Thanks for that, Michael. Now, the American Cotton Shippers Association will ring the bell and close out today's session in less than 15 minutes. Buddy Allen, the organization's president and CEO, spoke with our Judy Shaw about why today is so significant. Let's take a look at that.
So we're celebrating our centennial anniversary here at the New York Stock Exchange, 100 years of managing risk on behalf of the global cotton industry, particularly the U.S. cotton industry. Our members buy and sell the vast majority of U.S. cotton and the majority of the cotton traded in the world.
Now, Buddy, tell me, how has the cotton industry responded to consumer demand for sustainability?
Well, the U.S. cotton industry has developed a product we call the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol. It's the most robust sustainability platform in agriculture in the world. It authenticates our sustainable production practices, and it gives traceability so consumers know what they're purchasing. We're really proud of that, and it's an excellent augment to our risk management portfolio.
And what types of challenges does the cotton market face?
Well, consumers, brands, and retailers have called for sustainability, and we are proud to meet that demand. Now we need market share. We need consumers to recognize the technology that's developed in the U.S. cotton industry. We can provide wrinkle resistance. We can provide attributes that you want, a cool feel. We can wick moisture. We can increase performance in a way we've never offered before, and we can do it sustainably. So we need consumers to recognize that. We need brands and retailers to leverage that technology and put it on the shelf so we can grow our market share.
And finally, Buddy, there have been proposals by federal regulators, including the Federal Reserve, to increase U.S. bank capital requirements called Basel III Endgame.
Yeah.
So tell me how this proposal could impact agricultural markets.
Sure. Well, first of all, I would just like to say that many people characterize this as bank regulation, and we think it's much bigger than that. It affects consumers, it affects agriculture, to your point, and ultimately it's harmful. We oppose these proposals, and there are a couple. Ultimately, it will add costs to manage risk in agriculture, so producers will be paid less for their products, consumers will pay more for those products, and U.S. ag exports will be less competitive in a very challenging global marketplace. So because of that, we think that regulators need to reconsider these proposals and be very careful how they proceed. At the end of the day, most stakeholders in agriculture use an intermediary or a third party to manage their risk, and those third parties, whether they're our members, merchandisers, whether they're futures commissions merchants, they need efficient tools, and this will compromise that efficiency. And the last thing I want to say is we feel this is a big pivot from Dodd-Frank and previous regulation and legislation that really authenticated and showed the value of central clearing. Now we're turning away from that. Those are the grounds for our opposition.
And the American Cotton Association, Shippers Association, just finished up signing the distinguished guest book right over my shoulder. That's really an honor here. Now I want to break down the latest trends in the cotton industry, and I want to bring in Joe Nicosia. He is the head of cotton platform at Louis Dreyfus, as well as a member of the board of directors of the American Cotton Shippers Association. It's so great that you can meet with us today. I want to talk more about what are some of the biggest storylines that you're seeing on the minds of cotton traders?
Well, look, most people don't really realize that the United States is the largest exporter of cotton in the world, right? And today we have several challenges, most namely two devastating droughts in Texas for the last 2 years, which Texas is the largest producing state that we have in the nation. It's opened the door for foreign competition to challenge us in that particular time, most namely Brazil. And the strength of the dollar is also one of the challenges that we have. It's increased the profitability of foreign producers, and it's hurt us here at home. So we have a lot of challenges to move forward to try to remain being the top exporter in the world. Not to mention, although natural fibers and total fiber consumption in the world is expanding, but we continue to be challenged by man-made fiber. You know, cotton's come a long way in its sustainability. It's biodegradable. It should be a natural fiber of choice. So we have those challenges to try to build our market share so that we can make the consumer realize that with all the plastics we see in the world, the microfibers in our water, that the natural fiber that's biodegradable is the fiber of choice.
We're still a couple of months away from warmer weather. I'm curious what the market is pricing in for 2024 production.
You know, that's one of the interesting things. I'd say most people are looking for a small rebound in our crop size, so maybe 15, maybe up to 16 million. But when it comes to cotton and predicting the size of the crop, since so much of it is in Texas and into the panhandle essentially, which is so dependent on water, the size of the Texas crop can easily change 5-6 million bales. So a huge, substantial difference that's there. So although we're looking for a crop of that, it can be substantially smaller, substantially larger, totally dependent on water availability in West Texas.
Joe Nicosia, thanks so much for your time today.
Great.
Okay. All right, I'm going to send it over to Trinity. She is right over here. Hi.
How about I just join you? I'm just going to jump in the shot. No, I am actually joined with Jennifer Ilkew. She is the head of ICE Futures for the U.S. You know, Jen, let's talk about the significance of today and what it's like being here at the exchange and celebrating this.
Oh, it's the most exciting thing. We work closely with the American Cotton Shippers Association, everywhere from D.C. to New York City. We work with them on legislative process, on the financial markets, and a way to try to make sure that people understand the importance of the agricultural markets, make sure that the Hill understands how these contracts are different from the big banks, from the big commodities like oil and gas that are out there. People use the contracts that are on ICE Futures US to help to hedge their exposure for prices from coffee, sugar, cotton, all over, up and down the value chain.
And tell me,
Exciting.
Tell me about the partnership a little bit more and inform our viewers exactly what sort of opportunities have arisen from our partnership.
Yeah, so when we have the partnership with the American Cotton Shippers Association, we work to educate any of the users, the consumers, the manufacturers, cotton traders, coffee producers, so that they know how to use these products to be able to manage their price risk.
Amazing. And, let's talk more about the year in the agriculture markets. What do you think that we can expect come 2024 is here. What can we anticipate for the rest of the year? And what should investors look out for?
So one of the things that we're really looking at is weather. So El Nino, those weather patterns have been really interesting the past sort of year and a half, and created a huge amount of volatility. When with El Nino, it comes every 2 to 7 years. You get droughts, you get floods, you get wildfires. In places where you're supposed to have rain, you don't get rain. In places where you're supposed to, or you're not supposed to get rain, you do. And this has become huge issues for agricultural. So if you're a cotton farmer and you're getting too much water, it's no different than having the plant in your house and you water it too much and it dies. And how do you choose what crop you're going to do if you don't know exactly what water it is? Do you plant cocoa or do you plant something else?
Exactly. And we actually at ICE, we have our own meteorologist to talk about how the different weather conditions impact market volatility. So we've been having him on NYC TV Live quite frequently. So it's great that we have that resource also.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to have him and to discuss this. And actually, you know what? I've got to get out there.
Yeah, the bell waits for no one.
The bell waits for no one. Thank you.
See you later. Bye. All right. We're just about... Allison, what would you say? Let's come back in here. We're about 3 minutes out from closing out the U.S. equity markets. But, it's been an exciting day, I have to say. And look, we have dozens... We have a lot of people gathering right now to witness the U.S. equity markets being closed out.
We've got a great ICE climate report to tell you about. Let's roll it.
Around the world, the transition to a new energy economy presents a challenge for companies and investors. At ICE and the New York Stock Exchange, we facilitate the conversations to find solutions to complex problems. We gather a wide range of perspectives to help companies navigate the growing need to recognize climate risk as investment risk. We offer sustainability data and the world's most liquid environmental markets, so clients can measure, manage, and mitigate their risks. Wherever you are in your sustainability journey, we provide the tools and networks to help you identify risk, spot opportunity, and make more informed decisions.
So we're about 90 seconds out now, and you're going to hear the crowd just erupt spontaneously behind us. I never know when they're going to do it. Sometimes I get a little bit scared when they do it because all of a sudden you just hear cheering completely erupt all around the trading floor.
Lots of pomp and circumstance as we wait for the American Cotton Shippers Association to ring the opening bell. As you heard, Trinity and I just interviewed several members of that organization. And it's interesting, we showed you that climate report, and I talked to Joe Nicosia, and he talked about how climate and climate change is impacting their industry, which obviously impacts their bottom line.
Absolutely.
They've got some challenges, but they are excited here to ring the closing bell.
Yeah, the closing bell. It's been a day, right? We had our show this morning when we were hosting a show around the opening bell. Now we're closing out the U.S. equity markets, which actually we're about 40 seconds out right now. The crowd is just about to erupt. And, keep in mind, this is an active trading floor once again. So at points in times, you'll probably see some traders zip past us trying to get those final orders in as we close out the markets. So we're about 30 seconds out right now as everyone is getting situated on the bell podium. Hundreds of millions of people could be watching this moment. Whoever's ringing that closing bell on any given moment, it's arguably one of the most watched news events to happen in the world. But right now we're about 10 seconds out, so I'm going to have to turn it over and we're just going to listen in to closing out the markets. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm Trinity Chavez.
I'm Allison Cossack. Thanks for watching.
brands speak for themselves. The strongest brands stand the test of time. We are so excited to welcome you to our community. Today is all about you.
We've never lost sight of what we're trying to do and deliver that mission.
Going through this experience with my partners and my families has been unbelievable.
We imagined something that didn't exist yet, and we believed that we could do it.
You're going to look back on this accomplishment as one of the finest you've ever done.
I want you to know that the best is yet to come.
Just a few minutes, we'll go downstairs to the legendary New York Stock Exchange trading floor to ring the opening bell. The history here, the tradition, it's just incredible for us to be at this moment.